Welcome back to Better Than I Found It, the podcast, all things college golf. You're listening to Mike McGraw, the men's golf coach at Baylor University. Today's guest on Better Than I Found It is Louisiana Tech men's golf coach Matt Terry. Matt and I reminisce about leading his team to a junior college national championship. We also talk about his years at Troy University in Alabama, and most recently, his time at Louisiana Tech. The main topic discussed today is his wife, Dixie, and her battle with cancer over the past year, and how her courage has inspired Matt. It will inspire you as well. I hope you enjoy. Okay, Better Than I Found It listeners, give me a big welcome today to a good friend of mine, a colleague, and a good buddy of mine for a long, long time, Matt Terry from Louisiana Tech. Matt, really great to have you on the podcast today.
Glad to be here, Coach. It's been good listening in to some of the legends and guys you've had on your podcast through time.
You know, it's a little bit selfish, and people think, oh, it's what a great thing you're doing for college golf and everything. But it's really a little selfish because I actually learn something every time. Every single podcast, whether it's a player or a coach, former player, current coach, whatever, they all teach me something. And I expect that out of you today as well. So bring the heat, would you?
All right.
Okay. Well, listen, so you and I are in the middle to 3/4 way through a summer of recruiting and kind of getting ready for our teams to come back. So you and I talk about that. We saw each other a week or so ago at a camp in Dallas, and but we also see each other at tournaments. So how's your summer been recruiting wise and all that?
It's been good. You know, we've still been going over to Dallas for treatments for my wife. And so try to, just sneak in recruiting when we can. Normally with the number of days we have that we're allowed to recruit, you're not able to go out as much as you used to. It's no longer the I'm not going to say who used to say this, it's no longer the babysitting service that we used to do when you would go after players and you would constantly go watch the same few young men because you knew everyone else was watching them and you felt like you had to be there, especially, on the assistant side when we didn't have the regulation of days. But it's been good. The tournaments I've gotten to go to, it's been really focused on players, certain player to go there, not just random recruiting. And I feel like that's been good. And it's something, I've done for a few years that I feel like, I want to get to know the player. I want to see what they do bad and good. I love it when I kind of love it when guys that you want, you kind of tag them and say, that's my guy. And he throws up an 81. The gun, or he throws up an 81 in the first round, and then we get to see what he does coming back. And I think there's just different ways of going about it. We know who the best players are in the field. We know who the best player is, and you go to the golf course, you're like, yeah, this guy's the best player there. Everybody knows it. It used to be that's where you'd see 8 coaches walking with one group. But I feel like we're starting to spread ourselves out. The diamonds in the rough are harder to find now because I think coaches are working smarter and realizing that they need those young men. And those are sometimes the ones that win conference championships, regionals, and national titles. It's those background guys that maybe aren't getting all the limelight.
Exactly. And you bring up a good point. When the rule changed a few years back to 45 total days, that's for you and your assistant coach. You can't just indiscriminately go just recruit 5 days at the Rolex Tournament of Champions or whatever. Right. So I've chosen to do as many tournaments as I used to do, but only one day usually, or less time at each tournament so we don't use as many days. But that also requires me to do a whole lot better job on the front side of finding out everybody in the field, everything I can about them to begin with. So at least I organize my work once I get to the tournament. So I think the 45 days, a lot of people haven't liked it, but it's made me way more efficient.
I totally agree with that evaluation of it. And it's done the same thing for me. And you tend to maybe ask another coach if you've seen that player, if their roster's full, maybe they've seen the young man, play somewhere. And hey, what did you think about him? Or you maybe get to know their swing instructor a little bit better, their coach, and and figure out things. Like you said, do your background homework before you ever go watch. It's just not a rando going and watching a kid that might sling a club every 3 holes. Well, we're going to check him off the list. We don't need that around Squire Creek. And those are things that, I mean, for me, I'm always cognizant of that. I don't mind a little bit of temper, but if it's something that's every event we got a little chirping going on, I don't think that's going to go over well at my place.
Something that I don't think I've ever mentioned on this podcast, but something I started years back. I used to do the watching contests. I used to be there with there's 10 of us following the same kid, and we follow him 18 holes. And what was accomplished there, I have no idea. Probably what was accomplished, we all overlooked a pretty good player in the field that should have been recruited by us. So the watching contest I don't do anymore. But what I do is, if I haven't seen a player, I'll be on the first tee and I'll stand at a 45-degree angle ahead of him. Now, if he says shank, I'm in trouble, because that's what shanks come off at a 45-degree angle. But I'll stand there at about a 45-degree angle, and I'm looking at him, and he hits the shot. And I watch everything he does until that golf club is in the bag and he's walking off the tee. I do not watch the result of the shot. And then I'll walk down the fairway and see where the ball ended up. And then I'll try to match that result of the shot with the reaction I saw. And I do that for 4 or 5 little holes in a row. And it's like I'm kind of getting how he reacts to different shots. It's like I learn a lot right then. Now, if I've seen the kid play several tournaments, I probably don't have to do that very much anymore. But that's a little, I don't know. I don't know if you've ever done it that way, but I started years back, and it's worked well for me.
It's a pet peeve of mine to have players that don't watch shots down. I hate it in practice when we're hitting balls, if we're working on something, not watching a shot completely down, because how do you know the result? I mean, I understand you hit a bad one. It wasn't off the center or whatever, but if you're not watching it down, who's watching? No one else cares to watch it. And like you said, I used to love the best players that I've coached through the years were guys you could tell, like, bam, first tee box, hit the shot, they pick that tee up, they know where it's at, and you're like, yep. And shoulder shrug or a head goes back, whatever the case may be, it's awesome. And same thing with junior golfers. You can tell the ones that are confident that have it. I mean, I've been fortunate to caddy in some amateurs, and you get paired with a young junior golfer that's really good, and you watch him in a practice round for 9 holes, and you're like, whoa, this is elite. This kid's already got some elite things that he does, and you're going, man, that kid would probably be my number 2 player, and he's 15, and it's because he's already doing some mature level things that maybe we have to teach sometimes a young man to do, just like you said, before they tee it off and right after they hit it.
Yeah, I like to see the result. I like to see, I'm not a big fan of one-arm finishes and the bad body language and the exasperation. And so I created something years ago when a kid will be totally exasperated over a golf shot that ended up in the fairway. If there's trouble on both sides, or like there's trouble on this hole, and that fairway ball, a tour player is plenty fine with it, right? He's okay. That ball's in the fairway. I'll say, little Jimmy, I'm so sorry you didn't like that shot. This is in qualifying, by the way. I'll let you hit another one. That one's out of play. No, coach, I like that shot. No, it's too late. You decided with your reaction you didn't like that golf shot, so I'm going to let you hit another one. And one of the nicest kids I've ever coached in my life was Hunter Shattuck. He is an absolute rock star of a human being. And we're qualifying for this tournament, and he was totally exasperated. One-arm finish, just a terrible reaction of a ball when there was out of bounds on this hole. And I said, Hunter, I'm so sorry. You didn't like that shot. But here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to let you hit it. No, coach, I'm fine. I don't need to hit it up. Yes, you do. Well, he hit it out of bounds, made a quadruple bogey, and missed qualifying by a shot in that tournament. So poor Hunter. But the truth is, when I'm recruiting, I love to see reactions. I don't mind fire. I don't mind a little fire, but when that leads to bad body language, when it leads to more bogeys, I'm not a fan of that.
Yeah, there's something to that. I because it's not going to change. We had a coach around here say, if a kid hits when he's in little league, if he hits when he's in junior high, when he hits when he's in high school, probably going to hit in college.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
bad body language and bad attitude, and somebody's allowed them to get away with it this long. It's probably not going to change much. And I mean, you yeah, not stroking your ego, but you're one of the legends of the game, and a kid's still not going to listen to you, because the kid has ingrained that in himself to act a certain way. I remember my father. He wasn't much of a golfer like yours was, but my father showed up in Jasper, Alabama, at Musgrove Country Club to watch an invitational, and I was in one of the last couple of groups, and the young man I was playing with had set his clubs down, a wedge and something else in a bunker, and hit his bunker shot out and hit it bad, comes out, slams his club down on his other wedge and snaps it. My dad gets out of the cart, had a cigarette in his mouth, looks at me, puts his arm around me, and said, "You ever do that, you're done."
Mm-hmm.
I was 21. I was in college. If you ever do that, you're done. And goes back, sits back down in the cart and pulls off. And I'm like, that's all he said. We get in the car riding home. I said, I don't do that. And he was like, I don't care. He didn't care if I didn't do it. If you do that, you're done. And I don't know. There's a certain line you can't cross. It's like when you see a baseball player take the bat to the Gatorade cooler. Like, I get it. It's high intensity and all those things. But at the end of the day, man, if you're trying to screw up, then you don't need to be playing anyway. We know you're not trying to mess up. Just do the best you can every day.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you mentioned Musgrove Country Club. I played one round of golf in Alabama when I was there working for JC. Well, it was at Musgrove Country Club with Trey Mullinax. And he just fired a little 11 under par. I shot 1 over 73 or something like that. And I thought to myself, God, there's a reason I work for a living. There's a reason Trey's going to play for a living.
That's right. The swinging bridges.
Oh, yeah. Those made me nervous walking across those bridges.
Oh, yeah. I've played in that. I played in that event a few times. One of the gyms of Alabama that a lot of people don't know about. And you can go really low there. I had that same event, I had a guy that was probably my age now that was playing in it, and I was, of course, hitting it 30, 40 by him. We get up on this par 5 with trees right and left. I cannot remember the hole, and it wasn't very long, and I pipe a drive down there, hit a really good one, big, nice, high power fade, get it down there. I probably got 7 iron in, and this guy, I hit an iron off the tee. He hit the driver, hit it down there nicely, and we're probably side by side. I looked at him. I said, "Man, I can't believe you stood up there with that driver, with all the trees." And he goes, "What trees?" I mean, this guy works for a living, right? He's probably an insurance guy or whatever. And he looks at me and says, "What trees?" I won't ever forget that. And I just looked at him and I thought about it all day. I was like, "Man, this guy's just looking at fairways," And I tell my players that story, and I'm like, "Well, you can't help but see the water, coach." And I'm like, "Well, I get that, but let's not, that's like looking at a ditch when you're driving. I'm going to drive into it."
Absolutely, you are.
But,
well, no, Musgrove Country Club. What a place. I love that place. I need to go back. I think I can beat 73. I'm pretty sure I can do it. So how long have you been coaching, Matt?
Since January of 1999.
Okay.
Started out as about 6 months. I was an assistant coach at a junior college, Shelton State Community College, where I'm actually leaving today. They're putting that team in the Hall of Fame at the junior college tomorrow. I get to see most of those guys are coming back. We've got one in England that won't be back. One that had some personal business he had to take care of, and one that had daycare. He says that he couldn't get. Hey, he's 42 and he's got young kids. I said, "You're crazy," but we're going to get to see all those guys tomorrow night. And tomorrow we're supposed to be playing golf at Old Colony.
Oh, wow.
The JUCO was in Tuscaloosa. So the guys are pumped. They're all successful, older, but that was my first stint of coaching as I come in for a guy named Jim Collins, and he's going in the Hall of Fame tomorrow. That you ask about mentors. My dad was probably one of my biggest influences toward athletics and sport. But this man, he played both ways at Northwestern football. He was from a small town, Eutaw, Alabama, really small town. Very just stoic man, 6'2", big guy. He was a 2-time national pistol shooting champion, 1-time world champion. He was a 25-year state trooper. Did 2 tours in Vietnam. The times I got to spend with him and travel with him were some of the best stories. Like if you did a podcast just on him, it would be 5, 6, 7 hours of just stuff that he's seen and things, little ditty stories he would tell me. But that's what I walked into. He had helped out with this golf team, and I was down trying to play, of course, and I was at the 98 Q school and at Greenleaf West, and got done with the first round and called my wife, said, I got to get a job. I'm not good enough to play out here. And about 6 days later, I get a call saying he's looking for somebody to take the team over, and you just got to come up and be an assistant coach. And I said, all right, sounds good. He flies me up on his own dime. Didn't know it at the time. Thought the school was flying me up. He walks in. We sit down. He introduces me to the golf team. I watch them play 18 holes, and I'm like, these guys are better than me. I mean, why am I trying to play? And so he tells me, he says, hey, everything goes good this 6 months, you'll take over as head coach. I said, well, can I get that in writing before I go back and have my quit a good job? He said, well, they won't do that, but I'm going to be the athletic director. You got the job. I said, yes, sir. What does it pay? Because I wasn't going to ask that out of the gate. I just wanted the job. $250 a month.
Well, good gosh.
In 1999, I was already married. Dixie had a good job. And so I go back down and convince her to quit. She goes back home and takes over or helps out with the high school softball team that she worked at, lived with her parents. I lived on a buddy's futon in a 1-bedroom apartment in Tuscaloosa on Skyland Boulevard. And, it was a blast. I was up every morning about 5, at the office at 6, because he had already been there an hour, old military guy. We'd sip coffee. He'd tell me the way things work. He taught me to walk by all the ladies at the school and give them some candy or whatever they wanted to walk POs through for balls and gloves. And, other coaches would complain about POs taking 2 weeks. Ours got done in about 3 hours. He taught me how to play the game from the back scenes to make a program work, like a junior college program. And he told me, he said, this stuff will carry you well, in life, treating people this way. And it was interesting. It's the 6 months. I wish I would have had years working with the guy. There's no telling how good of a coach I could have become. But that was my 6-month stint of being an assistant. And then I became the head coach and been a head coach ever since. It's great.
Okay, you tell me, you walked into a team. Did they win a national champion? What did they do that spring?
We won that June. Beat Tyler Junior College, who had won 5 in a row. Your predecessor there at Baylor, he was the coach, and had given it over to oh goodness, can't even remember his first name. White was his last name. Played at TCU.
Clay? No, not Clay White. No. Anyway,
really good player from East Texas.
Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
Paulsville area, Tyler, somewhere in there was he was from. But he had taken the team over, and they were really good. And we got fortunate to win up in Raleigh, North Carolina. Had a young man, Jason Dillard, that was our one guy. We were leading the tournament going in the final round. I won't ever forget this. And of course, I'm still as mentally competitive as anything. I'm 27 years old, and played with the guys every day. So I knew what they could do, and we're losing it, making the turn. We've given up the lead, and I looked at Coach Collins, and I'm walking by number 9 going to 10, and he says, well, I knew it. They gave it away again. This will be number 3 finishing second in old Southern draw. And I looked at him and I said, I turned and looked and I said, Coach, what the heck do you want me to go tell him then? I was pissed because it was like he had quit, and he said, hey, you may want to go make sure they got some food and some drinks. And I looked at him like, what? What? Like what? And my adrenaline's going, and I'm in the midst of it. This is my first, I don't know how to react. I'm coach. I'm not playing. I don't have a club in my hands. How do I do this? And so I go on the backside, walk with a couple guys, and I get to number 14 tee. And I'm sitting down just thinking of what to say. This kid walks up, Jason Dillard, slaps me with his putter, MT, because that's what they all call me, was MT. It wasn't coach. I was 27. And he says, what's going on? What's shaking? And I said, man, if you don't birdie 4 of your last 5, we lose. And I don't know where I came up with that. I have no clue. Tuscaloosa News wrote an article on it. But he looks at me and says, all right, he birdied that next hole, didn't even turn around and look. He just held up a 1. I go in with our guy that was playing in the 1 hole that day, Drew Jones from Johnson City, Tennessee, and I walk in with him, and he goes and he cans about a 20-footer on the next hole and holds up 2 fingers. Goes to the next hole, stuffs it in there to about 6 feet, makes it, holds up 3 fingers. Goes to 17, he's got about 25 feet for eagle on a par 5, and I'm back in the fairway, and I used to have this thing I would point at my head, be smart with what you're doing. And he turns as he's squatting down reading this putt, and he does this now. I'm not doing anything stupid. I'm going to 2-putt this thing. I'm not going to try to can it and 3-putt. So he rolls it up there to about an inch away, taps in, and he screams in the fairway as redneck as you can be, "That's 4, MT. The next one's for you." And I'm thinking, 18's the hardest hole on the course. The pin's tucked over a bunker on the front left. I won't ever forget it. I figure out we've just taken the lead. So I run up, no live scoring. I run up the fairway to catch him. He's already hit his second shot. I get up there. He's 8 feet above the hole, slick putt, bent grass greens. And I'm freaking out, thinking the kid's going to just pump it by. So I go up there and I said, "Look, it's about 3 balls outside the right. Just trickle it. If it doesn't go in, no big deal. We're right there." "Yes, sir. Yes, sir." I go down, standing with Coach Collins. He, of course, takes the breakout, tries to gun it, knocks it 5 feet by. Coach Collins goes, "Selfish SOB." I knew he'd get just a typical, again, a guy that had been in the military. Well, of course, he makes the 5-foot up pillar, gets done, we end up winning. And one of the coolest things, and I looked at the kid, I'm thinking, man, you can make it. You could be a tour player with those type of things. And he made, I think, 8 all tournament teams that year, won 3 times, and he's competing against Bubba Watson and a guy named Nick Rousey that was a great player at Alabama. I mean, Nick was one of the best JUCO players to ever play. He and Alan McDonald, both of them played at Alabama. But just a really fun 6-month period to start your coaching career. And to be honest with you, I don't know if it's gotten any better. That's a lot of my 25 years of doing this.
Well, and you get to go share that with him. Is that guy that made that 2-putt on the last hole, is he going to be there tomorrow night?
He will not be there, but we've had a chance to talk. He's struggled with some things through his life, with personal battles. But he and I had a long talk the other day about how he's got to let Christ into his life, and he's got a void that's been there for a while, a little hole in his chest, and there's only one way to fill it. You and I both know it, and he I think he's there. I really do, and it's good that his teammates know it now. I don't think they realized it. I'm going to talk to them tomorrow about it, and they need to, even though they're all across the country. I got one as a club pro up in Cincinnati, one's down in West Palm, and they're all over the country. They can have a brotherhood there that they've created. They got rings on their hands because of those guys. These guys, and you're going to sound this typical JUCO, they took a metal cross, and they branded each other. This team did.
Oh, wow.
Before I got there. And as a show of solidarity, you know what I mean? I mean, these guys it was a special group of guys. They were from different backgrounds and worlds, and they came together and somehow were all really good. I mean, they were all really good at golf, and it was just a fun little journey there in that quick period. And then, I took over that summer, and I felt like I was the only JUCO coach out recruiting. I haven't missed a Future Master since '99 that summer. And I remember Coach Collins saying, "If there's one tournament you got to go to, son, you got to be at the Future Masters, because that's where you're going to find your players." And I said, "All right, Coach, all right, I'll always be there." And I had coaches, like Dick Spivey that would say, "Hey, go look at that kid," And when I was coaching junior college, it was great. It was great. I thought it was, to me, it was a little bit of cherry picking when you were coaching junior college, because if you just get to know the 4-year coaches, they would tell you who's good, that maybe needs a little work, or maybe they're just not long enough, or maybe they need a little schoolwork. They need a little chance to play to get better. But, back then it was different. We had, there wasn't, coaches didn't have all these great assistants, and now, the second coach and second assistant and all this stuff. And, it was fun. I tell you, I would have never left junior college had the program not been shut down in 2002. I would have stayed right there in Tuscaloosa. We looked at a lot out the lake, and I mean, I was making $25,000 a year. Thought I was rich. I had no bills. My wife was the softball coach, Dixie. was a softball coach at Shelton, and we had a great campus out there in Hillcrest, in Tuscaloosa, and great people to be around. And I mean, I'm looking forward to going back. I hadn't been back there in years, and by the time I left, we had the East Tee at Old Colony was ours, and you of course know the North Tee was Alabama's, and it was neat. I mean, I tell you, it was a lot of fun. We had a chance to win every time we pegged it. I mean, every time we put the tee in the ground, it was, we were one of the best teams there, and that was fun. Now it's if you don't peg it and bring it, you're not going to finish, and you can finish last quickly.
Yeah. I think that's what a lot of people don't understand. Pardon me, especially coaches who coached 25 or 30 years ago. I think it's pretty hard to understand unless you're in it, the parity that is involved right now, and how many teams are trying and how many teams have quality players. It's like crazy. It's different game.
It is. And you got too many really good coaches out there. I mean, used to, when I first started coaching at Troy in 2002, I mean, if you got out there and hustled, really, really hustled, you could get that player. Now you got so many great coaches out there, and schools are putting money into it, and they're putting resources even at the mid-major level. And people want to win. They want their golf programs can be front and center now with TV and everything involved. I mean, you've seen the evolution a lot longer than I have, and
you call me old. You call me old there, Matt. Is that what you're doing?
No, experience, brother.
Okay,
perfect. It's a little different. There's a little bit of difference. I tell people all the time that I've only been doing this, since '99, but I had the opportunity of coaching 11 teams. I mean, 11 years at Troy, coaching 2 teams, so that's 22 teams. So I throw an extra 11 years on mine. So I juice the numbers, as it were, a little bit better.
That's amazing. I honestly, I know you pretty well. I didn't know you coached women all those years. I just knew you when I was at Alabama. I think it's the first time we met when I was as Jay Sewell's assistant, and we were watching Patrick Martin and somebody else. We were watching a couple of kids that week, and I met you, and I just knew you as the men's coach. I didn't know you were the women's coach.
Well, we might have been at the Ledges, because P. Martin was probably 9th grade, 10th grade at the time.
That was at Ledges. It was.
Yep. And boy, you talk about a player. And that was one of those ones. You saw him in 7th, 8th grade. You knew he was gonna rock the world. I tell you, that's been a fun thing watching it too. Because I mean, you don't watch too many players that young, but when you know they're that good, you want to go see just a few shots here and there with young players, and just that one's got a chance to shine. We'll see him on TV one day.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, listen, you mentioned Dixie briefly earlier, and I'd like to go ahead and just talk about that. That's obviously a shocker. It's something you don't want when you got the diagnosis. So I want you to do this. Take me from diagnosis to present day, and what you've been through, and the colleagues that have supported you, just anything and everything about that experience.
Okay, so I go down to the Junior Orange Bowl to recruit. We got it planned out in December. Dixie's going to go with me. We're going to fly to New Orleans. We're going to make it a little mini trip for us, because the Junior Orange Bowl, you're done, by 2:00 each day. And so we, we're looking at going down there. It's, everything's set up, everything's good. She's not feeling good. And we just think maybe, she's going through the change. We're both in our 50s now. We figure that's what's going on. And, she just didn't get to feeling any better. So I said, well, look, why don't you go to the doctor tomorrow? I'll fly out today. So I went on down and got some recruiting in, and both of our birthdays are January 5th. It's the same day we got married. And so I call her on that day, we talk and everything. And she's still not feeling good. Been to the quick care, nothing. And then she goes to the doctor. Finally, they do blood work and send her on the 6th to the hospital in West Monroe. She immediately calls me when she's on the way. She's just feeling terrible. She's not good. It's really bad. She's fading pretty fast. And so I scramble to get a different plane ticket, get one booked, flying back to Dallas and then back to Monroe, and I'm able to be there at like 10 o'clock at night. Well, that flight gets canceled or bumped going to Dallas, so I have to end up flying to New Orleans, and I drive in, and I get there at 3 a.m. At the hospital, and I walk in. Her best friend's who's with her now over at the hospital now. She comes in with her sister to be there because they were able to drive in faster than I could fly in, and I get there and I just look at her and I'm like, this isn't good. This is really going to be really, really bad. And you don't show that outwardly, but it inside as the person that's been, we've been married for 20, that was our 26th wedding anniversary, in January. And I know, what you're going through with Pam, and that's your best friend. That's your person. And, we got buddies and we got friends out there in coaching and stuff like that. But this is the person that every day we can't do without. I mean, you could go work at Lowe's, would have no issue with going and working at Lowe's to pay the bills and wouldn't speak to a soul and go home as long as Pam was okay. And,
Yep.
and I'm the same way. And it hits me and it gut punches you and you feel all alone. And that's when you turn back and you go to the Lord and you ask for, just some wisdom and guidance. And the next day they do some more tests and the doctor comes in, the oncologist, and you could tell he comes in his cargo pants. He might have been in the military a little bit, and very matter of fact, mathematician type guy walks in the room and says, look, I'm not going to sugarcoat this. Here's the deal. It looks like cancer. It looks like your leukemia. I need to get a couple of more tests back, but my years of experience, this is probably leukemia. And we're going to set up a game plan for you and all this. And my immediately knee jerk is my mom died of lymphoma. And I was fortunate enough to be able to sleep with her, for 4 nights at MD Anderson because we were at Texas A&M's women's tournament. And, at the time, some coaches took care of my players. And it's close enough, Houston and College Station, where I was able to go back and forth and put them on a plane once we were done with the tournament. And I stayed in Houston. And all I could think of was those last, couple of days I really spent with my mom before she faded out. And I didn't want that. I did not want that. I watched my dad fold, the hardest man in my life. I'm talking about a absolute cinder block of a human being was my dad. I heard him. He cried twice in my life, and once was about his father and the fact that my dad had five bypasses, and when he came out of that, he was worried that he had allowed my grandfather to live too long. Because he made the decision, and he cried about that, and he cried about my mother when he called me, and we happened to be in a rain delay when he called me, and he never calls me when he knows that I'm going to turn. He never interrupts. He's not that way. You don't interrupt people at work. And so my mind goes to all this, right, with Dixie. And I've got to be the guy that's solid. I got to be the rock, the guy that's not crying. I got to be the guy that's there for her because she's going to be emotional. Our kids are going to be emotional. And he comes back in the next day, tells us we meet with our children. We've got a game plan to go to Baylor Scott and White over in Dallas to this team that he knew, Brian Berryman and who's our oncologist and all these other doctors and nurses around us. This is his team that he's going to send you to. It's like almost like a recruiting agency sending a player to Mike McGraw. This is your guy you need to go to get to the PGA Tour. This is your guy. Okay. No one else can do it like this guy for you. And so this is his specialty. And we go and it's been an unreal journey since January being with these doctors and nurses and the fact that they allow their Christianity to come out, and it's a daily thing we see, and with him and the people that he's surrounding himself with. And I don't know if it just so happens to be this way, or it's what we're noticing, or what, but it's the best medicine in the world for you because it's a mental medicine. It's in your soul. And she's, we're gearing up for this last thing now. We've gone through 4 rounds of chemo. And now it's bone marrow transplant time. She checks in the hospital today. We made sure to get approval from the doctor that it was okay that I go to this thing this weekend. She she felt like it was important. I mean, typical former athlete herself and coach, important to be there to speak at this thing because my boss has passed that's going in the Hall of Fame. They want me to talk tonight about him. And, she's going to start chemo tomorrow, and it's 5 straight days. And then we have day 0 is Thursday. And then Friday will be her new birthday. She'll get her sister's bone marrow. And for, people listening, it used to be they would go in and they would go into the bone of the hip. It was painful, very painful. And they would draw out 50 units from each hip. Now it's basically a blood transfusion. They'll pull her sister's, blood out. She comes back in tomorrow and does what she's got to do. And then they'll put that in her on Friday. And then it's the waiting game. It's making sure that, it doesn't get rejected. And these people are so unbelievably smart, and it's evolving every day. It's like an art form, and it's getting smarter and smarter and smarter with what they can do with this, and the fact that she's going to be healed when all this is done. And, it's going to be, it'll be through December that they'll keep monitoring her, but it's going to be 3 weeks of this, and then moving to an apartment right near the hospital, called Twice Blessed. And it's unreal what people donate. Like we've been in Hope Lodge, that's free. That's been unbelievable what people donate to. Gene and Jerry Jones built this particular one, but they're all over the country. I know Mark McIntyre's been through this with his son, in children's over there, where he was in McDonald House, and because he and I have talked, and there's other coaches that you don't realize they've gone through these issues. Just like you told me, I didn't realize Pam was, struggling, and I want to know that, I want to be able to pray for her and be there for you, because it's hard. And I would love to say, man, we got this. It's perfect, but it's far from the truth. There's not a time that goes by that, especially when I'm driving by myself, that you start thinking, I don't want to be by myself. I don't want to do this alone. And I told her, being funny, you can't leave me with our 3 kids. I'll kill one of them. I'll be in jail. One of them would be done. You're the sensibility there.
I appreciate you taking me through all of that, and we're up to this moment. It's pretty important for Dixie. But a couple things you need to know. One, your colleagues have been praying for her and you through all this, and it's very apparent. You find out how much tougher your wife is than you are. I mean, just how much stronger she is than you are, and that's the way Pam is right now, suffering through sort of an issue with kidneys, obviously. But Dixie, she's a warrior, and you're finding that out. You knew it, but you really found it out through this process.
Listen, and what's funny is I told her this. So the second night I was with my mom after they had told her she had 6 months to live. The next day they allowed her to eat solid food for the first time in a while. And she ordered a Reuben. I will never forget it. And she's chewing on that Reuben, and she looks at me and she goes, "Son, you got to be there for your dad." And I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "I'm worried about him. He's gonna struggle with this when this happens." And I said, "Oh, Mom, he's tough." No, you don't understand what's going to happen. I said, "Mom, I'm worried about you." And she goes, "Son, I'm not worried about me. My place has been made for me. I'm okay." And it's funny how she knew the next 5 years what my dad went through, the depression, and eventually his passing, the dark hole he went into, and he allowed himself to get into that dark hole. And women they're tougher. And Dixie's been that way through me. I've been with my, you asked me about how the journey's been, just for our team. January, we're sitting in that hospital in Baylor going through the first treatments, and you don't know. I mean, Dixie was really sick, and they're injecting her with stuff that's making her even sicker. And, she's trying to put on a brave face, and, kids are in and out, and I'm out in the lobby, and there's coaches are calling, they're texting, and it's because they're finding out things. And then Brentley Romine does the article with Golf Channel, and Brentley's a godly human being, and people don't realize he's given one of his kidneys to his mom, and in a transplant, and I didn't know that. So he and I got into just a separate off tape talk about what his journey and his faith journey, and you don't know it because we're just, we're out there playing sports, man. We're talking
Mm-hmm.
about, hitting wedges and making birdies and all this stuff. And hey, let's get to the real world. Let's get to what really matters. And, he does the article and he does such a great job with it that it was great. And then, good friend. And I've had tons of guys that have reached out and done things for us, people here in town, friends. Jake Amos calls me and says, mate, and I'm terrible at English accent, but he says, mate, I've done something. I hope you're not going to be pissed at me. And I'm like, what? And he tells me about the GoFundMe page.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, brother, immediately when I knew this happened, my pride is in my back pocket. I'm not a prideful man. Most of the time by nature, I'm a competitive person. But he tells me and I start crying on the phone. And it meant so much to me, so many people around the country. You realize you got some friends, right? And you got some acquaintances, but we're all competing and we're all at tournaments. We leave mad. Sometimes we don't play well. Maybe we don't say bye or whatever. But you start having people reach out all over the country and you realize, hey, maybe I've kind of made an impact here in 25 years of doing this. Maybe a few people maybe I'm not such a bad guy because I don't think we think that highly of ourselves sometimes. And I'm saying that to everyone out there that, don't spend too much time degrading what you do or who you are, because you're probably doing a lot more good than you realize. And, I had, somebody sent me a picture from a, fundraising deal they were doing in California. And this guy I'd met one time. They check your GoFundMe. Guy gives a big chunk. I mean, met the guy one time.
Mm-hmm.
And people reaching out. And I told Dixie, I said, if we ever are fortunate enough to have a lot of wealth, we're going to give it away. I mean, you and I think are very similar. I could wear the same pair of tennis shoes for a long period of time. I could wear a golf shirt from 10 years ago. Like, I think this golf shirt I'm wearing is probably about 6-7 years old. I just don't have to have very much. And that deal has helped us because you just don't realize the expense that we're going to do. I mean, we're still going through. It doesn't matter how much money you make, you're still going to get hit with something you're not predicting. And that's everyone out there, even young coaches, you're going to get hit with something with a child, with yourself, with your wife, with your parents, that you need to step up and be there for them. And I shut everything down mentally with my team, and I only focused on Dixie, and people here at Tech picked up the slack. Our compliance guy who I mentioned earlier is at the state amateur. He took the team 3 times. My sport oversight went, I think, a couple. And we had a old football ops for Skip Holtz, took the guys to Auburn, and my sport oversight flew in to see them, and our head pro at the club, he traveled with them to conference. Brad Pullen, our swing instructor, stepped up and was able, we filed some waivers and got him to be able to work with the guys at home. Sam Burns is my volunteer assistant. He had the guys over for dinner. He brought College Golf Fellowship in to meet with them. And it's been a huge village that's come in and picked my team up and made them better. I think we're an actually better team because this happened, and I wasn't there. I coached one event at Mossy at Mississippi State, and we played so bad there. and it's so funny. I got so angry at my number one player. He mumbled something off a tee, and I just laid into his ear. And I was thinking, man, you've been pent up too long. And he and I talked about it. He eventually won conference, and he's playing in Canada now. And we talked about it and laughed. And he was smart enough to not say anything back to me when I was kind of getting after him. But that being said, I was at practice a pretty good bit more efficient when I was out there with them, and really more joyous to be able to spend that time with the guys. And like, I'm looking forward to this fall to be able to spend the quality time at practice with them. I've always enjoyed going to practice and the daily grind of that. I don't know, hyped up as I used to at tournaments. I still get excited. I still can't sleep as much, but it's not as meaningful as what you kind of see at practice sometimes, and the light bulb going off. And we did some things before we went to conference that I felt like were very, very good that we'd slacked off on, that we picked up at Troy, a wedge drill that we do, some inside 10 feet things that matter to win tournaments. And, I know I talked to you about that, how good you guys were with wedges when those times you were at Oklahoma State. You guys would carve. I mean, you had 3, 4, 5 kick-ins around with each guy just about. And with your teams at Oklahoma State, and you probably could pinpoint most of the best teams you ever had in high school. Those guys were very good inside 10 feet, very good wedge players, because they're all going to keep. I mean, when you get to the level, they're going to keep it in play mostly. You're going to have an ball every now and then, or a ball in the hazard. But the good teams, they're going to keep the ball in play, but they're really good wedge players. And so we did that for 2.5 weeks before we left for conference, and the guys go to conference. I'm able to be at the practice ground. I leave from Texarkana and go to Dallas. So our head pro's there, sport oversight's there, and these guys play so well, get to match play, win their first match in a playoff against Middle Tennessee. Mark McIntyre sends me a text. I'm talking about immediately after my guy makes a 20-footer on his guy. I mean, his guy misses probably a 7-8 footer to force another hole. He texts me not 5 minutes later and said, I couldn't be more prouder to see the team win. And that's just class, man. I mean, there's something about that. And, and it was awesome. The guy that made it is probably a guy that doesn't think he's a very good putter. And, he goes on and we, same guy misses a couple of 4-footers to win the conference title for us, but the right team won. Charlotte wins and Cabo does a good job there and they go on to win, and that's fine. But it was kind of funny how from Mossy to there, the guys flipped a switch. They bought into some things at practice, and they came up with some things on their own, some little sayings that I can't say really on the podcast.
Certainly
that get after it and that they get motivated by it. It's something that we're going to carry on the rest of my coaching career. That we did at Troy my last 4 years there when we were so good. It's what we did there, and I allowed that to slip away a little bit here. That's my fault as the coach for not, I'm going to say forcing them to do these things, because I know, I watched Brad Pullen and Sam work together at Squire, and there's some things early on that I watched Sam do that he hated, some drills he did that he would get very frustrated doing as a young player, because I mean he's only 26, right?
Yep.
He's 21 turning pro when I first get to Tech, and I see these things and I'm like, if he's getting that mad at this drill, we need to do this, because this is something that's going to make him way better. And he's already in an elite level. So, but sorry, I got off on a tangent there, but it's just been, this ride we've been on. And look, I'm going to be in and out a little bit this fall as well.
Mm-hmm.
With some things needing to be with Dixie some more. And, she's not feeling well. I'm going to have to miss. And the guys know that, we've had those meetings and talk.
The one thing that's very apparent to me now is you've got a heck of a support system. A lot of people that want to help keep the program strong and want to help lift you up, you and Dixie both up during this time. So that's an amazing story to hear all of that, all those people stepping up. And the GoFundMe page was amazing. Jake starting that was fantastic. But anyway, we're going to keep track of this, and we'll definitely keep praying for Dixie and you as you continue to march right on through this.
No, I appreciate that.
Well, you mentioned this fall you'll be in and out a little bit, but just tell me, if you would, go through your lineup, if you would, who you've got on the team, and then just tell me what the fall schedule looks like.
So we got 4 seniors this year: Hunter Battles, Lake Jubin, Will Patrick, and Thomas Henson. And then we've got some underclassmen: Grant Smith, Riley Naddison, Peyton Johnson, Reeves Pullen, Alejandro Sanchez. And then we've got 3 new guys, JT Stevens as well, another local guy. But then we got 3 freshmen coming in, one from Finland, Nilo Makipeja, Jake Plum from England, and then a local young man, Greg Kingery, whose dad played football for us, who's a little older than me, and who's been a big support system too. He sells a chemo drug, and a lot of the guys at the club have been huge supporters of what's going on with Dixie. But it's going to be a fun group of guys. I say this, they're all believers, and which is huge right now with where I'm at in my life and career, and not that that's a filtering system, that you just find that out through the recruitment process. But it's been it's been neat with these new guys coming in. They're excited, ready to get after it. It's kind of funny how these seniors, all of a sudden, they flip a switch after their junior years, or their, a couple of them are COVID fifth years, and they flip a switch, and all of a sudden they're ready to take the team over. It's theirs. And you've seen, a little bit better play this summer out of them, and a little more focused when you see them around in their practices and things that they're telling me they're doing, and rounds they're shooting, tying course records and doing different things like that. It's kind of like, okay, we could have a little special year this year if we can stay healthy and, things can go right.
One of the things I've noticed through the years, the longer I coach, the more I realize when the players own the team, when they're running the team in a sense, when they are the ones who take ownership of it, we're way better. We coaches want to impose our will on the situation. All we can do is create an environment, and hopefully those leaders take it and run with it.
Well, it's funny you say that. So coming back from conference after they, lost that final match, they're bummed, and because they wanted to win the thing, and I know they told me they wanted to win the thing for Dixie and
yep.
Get it done for her. And they started talking. They were going to a restaurant. It's only 2 hours to Texarkana, and my sport oversight's driving them back in the van. And he's a former basketball player, young guy. He's only 31 himself, and he calls me after they go in the restaurant, and he goes, "We just had 45 minutes in the parking lot." I said, "What happened?" And he goes, "One of the guys said something to another one, basically telling them what they had to get better at the next year." So it just eventually became a round robin thing where they were telling each other, kind of just saying some really, really harsh things that needed to be said about one another to each other, and they listened. And he told me it was the most amazing thing that he'd ever been a part of. Even through the years of playing college basketball, he had never been a part of a team that did that. And I texted him back, thumbs up. Now we can get started. And when he got back, I explained to him what I meant, and it's what you just said. Now it's theirs. It's not my team. It's their team. It's their blood. It's their sweat. It's their tears. Look, I'm coaching. I'm trying not to crash the van. I'm trying to pick out some good restaurants. Make sure a hotel reservation's there. Make sure our plane leaves on time. Make sure we're in the tournament. We have got clubs. Hey, you're experiencing it. You've had to put your care logs in and stuff this summer.
Oh, yeah.
Make sure the shirts aren't too wild looking.
By the way, just so you know, I make a terrible assistant coach. I thought I was pretty good for Mike Holder. I'm not good anymore. I'm a head coach. Yeah. I know that.
Yeah, I think Rob Bradley did a better job at Bama than you did.
Much better.
But no, that was just one of those things that, I hadn't even talked to the guys much about it. One of them mentioned it to me and told me that it was amazing that once you got past your feelings, once you got past the feelings of it, that it was amazing. And I'm excited to see what happens. I mean, I feel like we got the schedule we've got is good. We host our opening event here at Squire, which is an amazing place. And, the people out there, the membership, the ownership of the Davisons, everybody there just treats us so well. And it's just been an amazing thing being out there. And then we go to UAB, we go to Limestone Springs. It's a course that one of my guys on the team lives right by the clubhouse. He's a senior, Will Patrick. Something I wanted to do a little bit for him. Hey, we might have an advantage here. His dad's been a big supporter of our program, and and they live right there in Aniana, Alabama, northeast of Birmingham, and it's a beautiful place. I don't know if you ever got to go out there when you were at Alabama, but it's a really special spot. And then we go up to Jake's place at ETSU in Johnson City. I still call it the Ridges.
Oh yeah,
used to be called the Ridges, and then we end at Stillwood at Ben Hannon's. So it's going to be a fun fall. It should be one we, these guys, if they come in and do what they're supposed to do, we could get in the mix of all four events. Try to stay within about 20 of Jake's team at ETSU, the way he got those boys going. And then we get into the spring, go to Jacksonville, to TPC, trying to think of everywhere we're going. We're going back to Ben's place at Magnolia Grove, down to see Theo Slyman at Louisiana Classics, which is a great fun event there. I think John Knauer said it was probably the culminating spot of the great eating tour of coaches. You know, John would say that, and when we finally got to go down there, when Theo invited us, I was hurting during the tournament. The food was so good, and you know, and you know, and then we go. Golly, I'm trying to remember Lingalonger, Reynolds Plantation, which is a beautiful spot, A&M, and then end at Mossy at Middle Tennessee before conference. Mississippi State before conference. So
you guys have a great schedule, and we will see at A&M. Looking forward to that.
Yeah.
But gosh, Matt, what a schedule! I'm excited to follow you guys this year for one reason, just that story you just told me about the kind of the moment they had there in the parking lot after that tournament. But so just know this, that everybody's thinking about you, praying for you, you and Dixie, and I just can't wait to see you on the road again sometime this year. And thank you so much for joining me for an hour today.
No, I appreciate it, Mike. And look, man, my love and prayers go out, ours to Pam and you, and you know that people are there for you. And you know what, like you said, I mean, your guys are there as well. You know, you got a great group of guys that are going to take hold of the reins and let you go on a ride for once.
Absolutely. All right. Well, listen, Matt, best of luck. We'll see you in a couple months at a tournament someplace, or maybe I'll see you at the Texas State Junior. I don't know. You guys infiltrate our state. You just never know.
Hey, I need to sneak over there. I'm seriously going to ask Dixie if I can slide over and watch. I've already looked it up and saw how far it is to drive, because I'll be in Dallas.
All right. Well, maybe I'll see you
in your friendship. Thank you, Mike.
Absolutely. You betcha. Thank you, Matt. We'll see you.
Yes, sir.